Good evening and welcome to the Whiskey Lover Society with me, Gert Retief. And tonight it's Whiskey of the World night, and we are looking at the Belgium L. Of course, I didn't even know Belgium made some whiskey, so I was quite curious when I looked at my online whiskey store. And they have all these whiskies all over the world, and they sell this nice whiskey samples. So they had this one section on Belgian whiskey, so I was quite intrigued. So I picked up a bottle, a very light whiskey. I think that is one of the lightest whiskies that I've ever seen. So I was curious, can Belgium make whiskey? So I had to buy it. And a little bit on the whiskey itself, and maybe some information on the distillery. So this one is bottled at 46% ABV. It's matured in first full bourbon casks for 3 years, well, maybe 3 years and 1 day. They do sell it in only half a liter bottles, 50 centiliters, so quite a small bottle, but quite expensive. It is natural color, non-chill filtered. This specific sample that I have came from a bottle that was bottled in 2014. So it seems like every year they have a batch coming out, and it might also be a little bit different in color. So that's something that you should know. Not colored, so not always going to be the same. Some year it can be a little bit darker. I doubt it if it can be any lighter than this one. So the distillery actually only started in 2004, so very young distillery, and their first bottling was actually in 2007. So they do have a nice history as well with regards to some awards. They also been awarded a 95.5% from the Jim Murray Whiskey Guide. So that is definitely a high praise. So I'm looking quite forward to this one. So they do have a core range. It is a very small distillery with around 20,000 bottles a year. And I'm glad that I'm in the region so that I can actually buy some of this whiskey. So if I look at the core range that they have a Origin series, they have a Identity, Passion, Intense, and By Love, and then they also have some special editions that they produce, and some of them are even cask strength. And I put some photos on when I do the editing. I'm just going to give it a pour. I'm going to give it a nose, a taste, and I'm going to give my thoughts on this one. So with this one, I actually tasted a little bit last night. And I did realize that this one needs a little bit of time in the glass. And the reason that I do say that, it is in the beginning, you don't get a lot of notes coming out. And my first note that I wrote down on my thoughts on it was like, there's nothing. I don't get anything. And so that I thought was a little bit strange. But about 2-3 minutes later, 4 minutes later, I do pick up all this nice aromas coming out. And I started enjoying it. And I do find it quite interesting whiskey. So on the nose, cheers. Now, if you give it a little bit of time, the first thing that I do get is a little bit of a citrus note. Very pleasant, a little bit of maybe a lime zest with a hint of sugar on it. And then I get a little bit of a vanilla note. So it's only 3 years in the cask, so that's why it didn't pick up a lot of color. And then I get a little bit of a fresh pear note and a little bit of a vanilla custard note. little bit of an apple cider, and then a hint of a banana bread at the back. So for me, this is quite an interesting one. I'm quite glad that I picked it up. So on the nose, also a little bit of a tobacco note that I get up, which is something that I didn't expect. And a little bit of an orangey type of note that I get. So quite pleasant actually. So it is 46%, so I'm going to first try it without water. And then I'll put a couple of drops in to see if it makes a difference. So on the taste, cheers. This is nice. Wow. I get the sweetness and a little bit of a vanilla, something like a creme brulee. This is really nice. It's got a little bit of a oily mouthfeel to it, a little hint of a alcohol spice. There is a youthfulness in the alcohol, but it's quite balanced with the sweetness of the alcohol. A little bit of an oak. Definitely, it is an oak, and I'm quite surprised that it's more oak than I would have expected after 3 years. Let me just give it one more. It reminds me a little bit of a vanilla ice cream with some whiskey in it, or maybe what we call it, the Don Pedro. It reminds me of that. So there is a creaminess to it as well. And the intensity is building up on the oak side with every sip that you do take. So this is really nice. I think I'm just going to add a little bit of water. Not much, maybe 5 drops of water, just to see what it will do to it. Yeah, I'm not sure if adding water on makes a big difference on the nose. In fact, it does tone it a little bit down. So I'm not in favor of adding water to this one. Yeah, it totally kills the nose on it. So on the taste with water, a little bit more intense, a little bit more on the oaky side, a little bit more dry mouthfeel coming out with water, more citrus notes coming out, a little bit of a sour note coming out. So definitely for me, it's not a good idea to add water. Plain, straight, sipping whiskey. My thoughts on him, I do like it. I'm quite impressed with it. I think for a 3-year-old, they did manage to get some nice notes out of the first full bourbon cask. It is quite well balanced. There is an oak note to it in the finish, but it is not overly oaky for me. The sweetness, the creaminess that you have without the water, I do like that. So I do put my stamp of approval on it. And they have a good range. I think I'm looking forward to see if I can get some more of the different expressions that they have, to give that a try as well. Score-wise, I am going to not be so generous as the Jim Murray. I am going to be a little bit more conservative, and I will give this one a 89 out of 100. It's fantastic. Well, not maybe fantastic, but it's a nice drinkable dram. So remember to like and subscribe, or just subscribe, and I see you next time. Cheers.